we're going to show you learning curve for two reasons. One, because it's good to locate ourselves in the curve, because we need different things depending on where we're at on this curve. The second thing is we can provide different things to other people depending on where they are on this curve. So imagine we're starting here, and you're sort of just progressing onward, and we might say this is you trundling happily along on the results of prior experience. So let's take language learning as an example. Most of us, when we're speaking in our heart language, we don't have to think that often about what am I doing or saying. We just sort of do or say, which sometimes has disastrous consequences. we don't have to think that hard because we know the language. And then at some point, there's a place where you have a choice. Do I learn Mandarin, as an example, if you decide I'm going to now learn this language? And this is true for anything. You're taking a risk. You're doing something new. It's changing. You're learning and growing. What we find is that typically your performance drops. So this line represents your performance over time. So you're doing well in this area. I speak English. I know it. I can ask for things. And then you start learning Mandarin, and you are trying to ask where to go to the bathroom, and you call someone a foul name. Something like that. I'm sure. So your performance drops.
She just said that's the cliff.
And that's the cliff. You've gone over the cliff.
Yeah.
And for a time, your performance continues to fall, and it feels bad. At some point, what you need to come out of that is support. And so if you can get the support that you need, you can bottom out, and then you start to come back up. So support can mean a lot of different things. It can mean practice over time. It can mean having somebody that affirms and coaches you. It can mean finding new information that you needed to succeed in your role. So if you're accepting a new job, you were doing great in your old job, and then you got a promotion, or then you went to a different company, and you're like, I don't know how to do this stuff. And you're in free fall.
And it's feedback, essentially, right?
Feedback.
You're getting information back about your performance and the encouragement. Yeah.
Or the resources.
So support, feedback, resources, that's critical. That's what stops the free fall. Sometimes it's just grit. You just push through it, you practice, and you get better. Eventually you start to come back up, and what happens is not only do you climb out of the hole, because you've now pushed through this and gained more knowledge, your performance actually exceeds where you were before. And so if it's language, now you're bilingual. Now, eventually you're going to level off again, because this is what happens. You could potentially become so proficient at Mandarin that it's not actually challenging for you anymore. So eventually you level off and you find yourself back where you were, but you stair step. It's at a higher level. You just had to get through the valley of chaos to get there. So this is the risk. This is the free fall. That's the moment of getting support. That's the moment of growth. And at this point, you're ready for a new challenge in this area. So Charlene makes a really good point whenever she does this. You make several good points. One of them is that these curves are happening overlaid each other all of the time. Mm-hmm. So in other words, it would be great if we only had to deal with one of these in our life at a time. And that's not how it works.
I mean, I think one of the things that is important is not just performance, but this is uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It feels awkward.
It goes against the grain.
It is against the grain. We're not going with normal. We're getting splinters. Mm-hmm. You're moving against that grain. It is uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And we do not like, especially as adults, to be uncomfortable.
No.
We don't like potential embarrassment or failure at all. Which is why the interesting part about language learning, as an example, is you feel like a 2-year-old. I remember learning German, being in Germany with my family, my German family, as a 16-year-old, and the person that I could connect with the best was their 2-year-old. Mm-hmm. We spoke the same amount of German. All right? I was on my 3rd year of high school German. We spoke the same amount of German. I'm getting cherries and churches all mixed up. Mm-hmm. Kirche and Kirche. They sound way too similar, people. So I had to, what I wanted to do was
get more comfortable. So, true story, our CEO, Stephen Harrison, we mentioned, he opened an office in Ethiopia for the Center for Creative Leadership in 2010. Amharic is the national language of Ethiopia. It is one of the most difficult languages on the face of the earth. to learn and to read and write. So he started trying to learn. And he tells a story about this. One day he went to a butcher shop, and what he thought he said to the butcher was, "I would like to get some scrap meat for my dog."
Oh, God.
She's over here.
So he said this out loud. The butcher looks at him, takes off his apron, throws it on the ground, and walks out the back of the shop without saying a word. And Stedman just kind of stands there for a moment, like, okay, I think I made a mistake. He leaves. So he goes to a good friend of his and says, "Hey, I'm gonna tell you what I said. Tell me what I actually said, please." Friend says, "Oh." So what he actually did was he went to the butcher and asked for dog meat.
Oh.
The meat of a dog.
Like meat from a dog, not meat for his dog. So if enough experiences like that pile up, and maybe you decide, hey, you know what? Everyone around me wants to learn English anyways. English is the professional trade language here. You know what happens? You decide not to take the risk. So your curve looks like this. It continues onward. And there's a lot of reasons why. Sometimes you might say for fear of looking bad amongst your peers. Sometimes I think there's just a fear of failure. It doesn't have to do with other people. I don't care how other people think of me. It just feels bad to fail.
And sometimes, can I mention efficiency? It's not efficient to fail.
It's not efficient to fail.
No. Right? It's not efficient to learn new things. I'm good over here.
I'm fine.
In fact, I'm doing fine. I'm like, ooh, I'm an expert here. But when I take a stretch assignment, when I step out, when I do something new, if I know that this is going to happen, it's really difficult. You definitely are identifying a risk.
And think about, this is called the space of lost learning. So it's really difficult when you're anticipating a risk and when you're starting to go down, you start to feel bad. It's hard to keep this in sight. It's hard. So like I mentioned this year, I've developed a habit of working out at the gym for the first time in my life. Our friend John and I are working out. And at first, like,
really early in the morning, by the way.
4:45, I'm out of my bed. We're at the gym by 5. There's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And he talks about the compounding effect of habits in the long term. Small things compound over time. And that's this. It's not that you just come back and you're the same. You actually experience compounding gains. And before taking a risk, you have to keep those in sight, because once you do take the risk, the going against the grain is very painful, and it makes you want to back out of it often. Some of these dips are shallower than others. Personally, Heather and I, we thought having our first child, I thought the first 6 weeks were going to be horrible. Like, I thought Heather was going to just cry and control me all the time for no reason. I was like ready for it. I was like, I'm going to be super husband. She's going to get super postpartum depressed, and I'm just going to be great. Like, it's going to be fine. And actually, Lucy was like a pretty easy baby. Like, we had to like not talk about it to some friends because of how easy she was. Because I didn't want people to be mad. Like, she's just a great baby. So for us, like, it was definitely a learning curve, but the performance dip was not as deep as I feared it would be. So now we're like, dear Lord, child number 2, please repeat this experience. And meanwhile, I'm like anticipating it's coming. Like, I'm sure it's coming.
You gotta set an expectation.
So I said earlier, we've got a bunch of these curves going on all the time. Some of them are deeper than others, and some of them are a little shallower. Charlene, your point though that you make about your perspective in this, I think, is really important. Could you make that and perhaps draw it?
Yeah. So, again, like when we're thinking about this idea of support, now that we know, so awareness is really important here. The thing that helps me keep going is the awareness that there is an end. Like, it's not going to be forever. Like, you will make it through this. Have you ever think about a time when you had to learn something and there was somebody who had been there before, little eyeball here, and they could see this whole thing. They see this and they're able to say, oh, honey, I know that it feels like this will never end, but you will make it through it. Baby situations. Your baby will sleep. Right. Eventually, they will sleep through the night. I've been there, recognize there's colic, whatever's happening, it's been 1.5 years, but you will sleep again. Hang in there. And the more we get comfortable with this, the more we get okay with this.
Yeah.
It may still feel that way, but we can leverage and take those because when you experience this, it is infectious. It's contagious in the sense of, I know what will come. And I do think that we have areas in our life where we individually, where this becomes a little bit easier. And there's some that you can look back and be like, I choose this every time. Like in this area, I've tried this and I haven't done it enough times. Like I didn't repeat it enough. I didn't get to a place where I saw this. Like I have basically stopped my learning curve for whatever reason. So this space for us is our development space. I think that we get to be the support for those that we lead, those who are developing around us, those who we coach, all of those things. The tricky thing is, oftentimes we need to tease it out. Like ask the question for revelation versus tell them. I'm living this right now. I have a young woman who lives with me, and we're going on about 2 years now, and I can tell her all day long that it's worth it. And I can just like describe. At this point, she can't hear me say that. What I can do that's more helpful is ask questions so that she gets her own like, I can make this. And what she needs is some of these shallow moments, and I'm helping her bring those like development. I can see, okay, this is gonna be a shallow one, and I encourage her into that risk, right? I'm encouraging her into the risk. I'm not saying anything about this because I know she's gonna traverse it, and the courage and the consistency that's going to come from that will lead her to the next risk, to the next risk, to the next risk.
In other words, you're able to give her opportunities for developmentally appropriate risks.
Yes.
That have like not as steep as a drop.
Yeah.
But still produces the same. You started one way, you come out the other side, and you learn and you grow from it.
And I think that what we run into now, we see a lot in parenting, we use this in parenting, is because of fears, you'll see parents who try to keep their kid from risk.
Yeah.
We're trying to protect a little bit too much, not give too much opportunity, and we're thinking that this is, forgetting that there is opportunity.
But this is necessary.
Yeah, it's
is necessary. So think about
the only way to grow
and leaders. So a question that we ask people that lead organizationally is, do your people understand that failure is a learning opportunity? Or do they believe that failure results in punishment? And so therefore there's fear associated with it. Because the truth is you can't really learn, grow, and change without taking meaningful risk, or at least believing you're taking meaningful risk. And so as a leader, we have the opportunity, because we see this whole cycle, you can create environments for people to step into it. But the difference between a director and a coach is some people, you have to invite them to take it themselves rather than push them over the edge into taking a risk they didn't choose.
And there's just different relationships. So I'm thinking about, I've taught people to drive a stick shift so many times, okay? I was the person in my organization in Africa, not only taught people to drive a stick shift, but I also taught them how to drive on the other side of the road. And I'm telling you that sometimes that was easier for me to not jump over in that seat and take control than other times.
Yeah.
When I was more disconnected from it, it was super easy. When I was really invested in the person, it is very difficult to not control. Because I want them to succeed.
Yep.
So I can see why parents
You want to rescue them out of that.
You want to rescue. I don't want you to feel that pain. This is painful.
Yep.
And maybe I don't want to feel pain either if I'm in the car with you.
Yep.
But it's the awareness and the allowing it to happen.
It's the awareness of the lost learning that's going to take place if you don't allow somebody to feel.
Like, how am I hurting you by?
So like my daughter, when she was first learning to walk, we were so nervous of her falling over. There's a balance of like, I have to let her fall over because she's not going to learn to walk otherwise. But then there's like, okay, I can put some padding on some of these surfaces in my house. Like, it doesn't need to be that.
Right.
You know? So like the consequences, the performance failure, I can like lessen those consequences a little bit without restricting her. Like I want her to learn how to get along with my dogs, but I don't want to just like not watch them for a while, because for both of their sakes.
Good luck.
Yeah, like this is not appropriate risk.
Yeah.
Can I say just something else I've learned in this process myself is that risk thing has a lot to do with identity. Like, so with every risk, the initial fall down the hill is a loss of identity. But when you come out the other side, you actually have a stronger, more robust, deeper identity than you had. But there's that, and language learning is a prime example because I'm speaking Mandarin as a 2-year-old, and I want so bad to go up to people's streets and be like, I'm a great communicator. I stand in front of crowds in the U.S. and speak, and I can't even find a bathroom. There's this sense of losing identity until you come back out, and then the journey of the development actually increases a depth of your identity. So that risk is recognizing the loss of identity and helping people navigate that feeling of losing identity, knowing that it is going to come back and actually have a deeper reality to it, or awareness.
So let's personalize this. I put some tiny little Post-it notes in your table. Can you take one and bring it and put it up here? Identify a place, think about a curve in your life that you're facing.
Something you're learning, something.
It could be personal, could be professional. Pick one, and then put your sticky note. Are you here and you're either anticipating a risk, or you recognize I really need to take one because I'm not growing? Are you in the middle of taking it? Are you in free fall and going against the grain? It feels bad. Are you receiving support? Are you grinding it out? Are you actually finally feel like I'm doing well? Are you ready for the next challenge? Take your sticky and bring it and put it over here. Just don't cover someone else's up.
Sorry, are we supposed to write on it what it is?
No. Just think of it and then come to it. Yep. I want us to have a visual of what each of us are experiencing in a lot of ways. Thank you. You gotta get it right. So what do you notice?
We're all at the very bottom.
So no one would say I'm at the bottom of the bottom.
I'm not in the pit.
But there's someone that's probably trying to figure out where is the bottom. That's what I see here. Where is the bottom?
I would say one area of my life, I didn't put it one there, but in one area of my life, I am at the very bottom.
There's a great little book by Seth Godin called The Dip, by the way, that's similar. It's kind of about this, but his idea is from a business perspective. You've got to go through a dip to come out the other side, and he would basically say, make sure you can actually come out the other side, that you're prepared for it. So don't quit in the middle, but also don't start if it's not the right dip to go through. So it's an added perspective on this that we don't have time to fully go into, but just wanted to drop that one thinking of it. What else do you notice?
None of us feel like we're on the other end.
So both the ends are just totally unrepresented. So no one feels like I'm waiting for my risk, and no one feels like I'm coming outside as a champion, at least with what we mapped here.
Yeah.
Any further questions about learning curve?
Well, you mentioned one thing, and I think my experience is, you mentioned sometimes you just have to grit it out, that the support is really self-support than it is out. And that would be my experience. So I just think that sometimes the curve changes when somebody else comes alongside, or you get the resource, or whatever that may be.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just you live through it.
Yep.
And hope somewhere down the road that you actually get back.
Sure.
That learning, you actually do get the growth on the other end.
So there are two ways to exit that I've seen. There is the self-made person that comes out and wants to see everybody else gritted out. And then there's the person that comes out of that going, I wonder what it would have been like if somebody could have helped me in that. Then there's an aspect of both. How can I how can I help those things? And I think that there is a transition, just in general in culture, in wanting to see some of that. Like, again, not a pendulum swing, back to, let me give you all the support, therefore you have no grit. Let me give you no support, so it is all grit. There is a balance.
Like, we don't need to abandon people. We also don't need to coddle people.
Exactly.
And that navigating the how do I find the third way that doesn't smother and also doesn't just like leave people to die. That, and we'll talk about EQ tomorrow. I think some of that is being emotionally intelligent, recognizing what do people need most right now. What do they not even know they need, but I can tell that they need it.